So, cheers. All right, you're on Mike's Beer Club, but thanks for taking time out to chat with us today, Nige.
All right, thanks, Mike. Thanks for coming in.
And what are we drinking today?
We're just having a little Thistle Cove, which is a little mid-strength beer, because it is a little earlier in the day, and also I want to be coherent at the end. Yep.
Cellar door later on this afternoon.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, busy time, the Christmas New Year break, which is great for all the people that come down to Esperance.
So what else are people drinking when they head along to Lucky Bay Brewing? What's on tap?
Probably the main beer they go for is the Sandy Hook, because that's the one that's made from the barley straight out of the paddock here. It's 75% barley straight from the farm, and so it's a little bit unique in terms of it changes year to year as we change seasons of barley, and also it's being a raw barley beer, or a barley pale ale as we've termed it. It has its own unique flavour profile, which is good. People seem to like it.
So the focus of that beer in particular, and people can kind of read about that online, is that particular beer, the Barley Pale Ale, uses raw barley from just up the road, which is a kind of defining difference for you guys.
Absolutely. I mean, we right smack in the middle of a proud agricultural region, and we grow a lot of grain. We grow about 600,000 tonne of barley every year, sometimes more. And really, so I was looking at a way, well, how can we use that before it all just goes on a boat and disappears? So using a raw barley in the brew, and all our beers do have some raw barley. One like this is only sort of 3 to 5%. But the Sandy Hook, the pale ale, the barley pale ale is 75%. And we also have another beer that we use 50% wheat in our wheat beer as well.
Mm-hmm. And getting the raw barley pale ale into the beer and out as a product, how was that journey as kind of a development recipe for you guys?
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, brewing with that much raw barley, there's no other recipes around like that. I mean, when you start out with something like this, like a Scottish ale, there's a number of recipes that give you sort of some really important markers that you can fine tune from there. But the raw barley at that level, we didn't necessarily have anything to follow, so it was probably about a 4 or 5 year journey of sort of trial and error, and a few commercial scales and a few pilot scales, before we were confident we could bring a recipe to a commercial brewery and put our label on it. And that really came out of a project that was aimed at, in my day job, aimed at encouraging Asian breweries to use more of our barley in the raw form. And it works very well in that sector of the market too. We had some guys using 75% raw barley and 25% rice, so they were interchanging the malt and barley there, and they were very happy with the results too.
Okay, so along with using local barley, you've got that good community support, small regional catchment area behind Esperance, around Esperance, and that's been kind of the main distribution for you guys up till now, is just that regional area.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing about beer is that it's pretty heavy, and it's you got to look after it, and ideally you keep it cold in transport. So that local distribution does really work for us, and that's sort of where we've concentrated. We're now sort of at the quandary of, if you do distribute further, you've got to be a lot more sophisticated in your operation, be it in either bottles or cans, or even that cold chain in your kegs going to your venues, if they're going a long way away. So that's probably our next step, and how we tackle that, well, I guess we need to do a lot more homework in that area.
Right. Yep. So we'll go to your background, getting into brewing, opening about a year and one week ago. I was at your first birthday bash about a week ago, drinking plenty of the beer. So what's brought you into the brewery game?
So originally I come from an agricultural background, and I've been working around about 10 years for a local farmer group here in Esperance, looking at issues of grain quality and grain production. And from that, I worked on the brewing project, which was encouraging Asian brewers to use more of our barley. And in that process, I just sort of bumping around amongst the brewing industry people, and I guess you could say the technical interest of brewing just grew from there.
Okay. So, looking at Lucky Bay Brewing's position in relation to the rest of WA, and where other breweries are at in WA, where other breweries are at in Australia. Who do you follow? Who's kind of been an inspiration as you were starting up, and who are you kind of tracking now? What stands out in WA brewing for you?
I guess in an inspiration, I mean, definitely Charlie at Mash Brewing was really good to go and do some work experience there, and he's a really competent brewer, really understands his recipes, and that sort of experience is hard to come by. So I was really grateful of that sort of mentorship there. We also looked at a number of breweries right across Australia and New Zealand, and a little bit into Southeast Asia as well, of just the configuration and setting things up. So it's difficult to put my finger on it. Where are we looking next? I'm not sure where we're looking next. We definitely want to sort of concentrate on our local area, and that link with our local communities and the agricultural community is something we'd like to continue with. And that means, other regional communities. I mean, we have a sort of a obscure football club in the Central Wheat Belt that is very happy to take our beer, and it's a little bit of a logistics nightmare to get it to them, but it works out pretty well, and they're the sort of things we'd like to work with. I mean, the fact we can use local barley has opened up a few avenues that other people perhaps haven't thought of, and that's where people can actually grow their own grain and bring it to us, and then we can give it back to them in sort of 20 odd kegs of fresh beer.
Right. Did something like that happen with your Wharton wit beer? That's the Belgian style wit beer that was out 2 weeks ago for you guys?
Yeah, so the wit beer, so we were desperately wanting to get it going for summer, and generally the progress of harvest down here is barley and canola before wheat starts. So our growers, Gavin and Elaine Egan, they just sort of nipped off to the side and did a little 100 metres of wheat crop for us, so we could get a sort of 150 kilos of wheat. We brought it back and milled it, and it was in the tank by next morning. That was a really great thing to do, just to straight out of the paddock, straight into the tank. It's pretty unique.
And on tap a couple of weeks later, or thereabouts, and it's been selling well. A few local venues have got it around town that I spotted.
Yeah, and it's we prototyped probably 4 or 5 wheat beers before we picked out that one. For me, it was the fact that it had that 50% raw wheat. Our brewer, he liked it too because we were using a Belgium style yeast, and it gave it a little bit more interest of flavour. And also, we've got to remember our local drinkers here, some of those more confronting flavours, or sort of those banana, yeasty, clovey styles, are perhaps a little bit too upfront for some of our drinkers. So we need to balance it and keep it sort of different, but not boring.
Yeah. And so where are you heading to next for Lucky Bay Brewing? You're talking about just focusing more on the community, the regional community, some distribution. Is there anything else on the radar for you guys with brews and projects?
I guess look, the English style. I mean, Adam, our brewer, he's currently away on a holiday, and he's going to pop into Belgium and the UK and also Germany and have a look at a few things there. So look, I'll be curious to see what he brings back. Personally, I feel like the English style ale is something that we could explore a lot more, and I really like that. We're on the south coast of Western Australia. It's a bit cool during winter, so we could have a bit of fun with, say, some English ales over winter.
All right. Top stuff. When people want to find out more about Lucky Bay Brewing, where do they head? And in the evacuation shelter we've got set up for them today, when can they pop along?
So during summer, 2 till 6 p.m. In the afternoons, and pretty much most weeks of the year is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 2 till 6. So we are primarily a production, so we're 100ml tasters, and we really do rely on those local venues for our tap points, and basically just outside of Esperance, on the tourist loop, just west of town.
All right, cool. So Lucky Bay Brewing in Esperance. Thanks, Nige, for taking time out today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
Cheers.